On what side of Sunday did you get up on? On what side of Sunday did we get up on? You know, we're accustomed, especially in the South, of asking the question, what side of the bed did you get up on? Meaning, are you in a foul or good mood? But today, the question should be, on what side of Sunday, on what side of Easter did you get up on? I imagine that a good many of us got up on the Monday side of Easter. We stepped into our seersucker breeches. Had these for 31 years, and they look it. Thank goodness I have a dress on. Oh, we slid into our pastel dresses. Jesus is risen indeed is on the precipice of our tongues. The deed's done. The cross is empty, and now it's in full flower. Victory of our Lord has triumphed. Death is defeated, and the devil has crawled back into his slimy, dark hole. Now that that's finished, we can get back to business as usual on Monday. But some of us woke up on the Saturday side of Sunday, the Saturday side of Easter. We find ourselves crouched in that dark, foreboding tomb, where we're gasping for every breath, where we're choking on the miasma of decay. In that place, we know it's not finished. At least we know we're not finished. We know we're not finished. And there seems to be an awful long way to go. There's a lot of us who woke up on the Saturday side of Sunday. For those of us in that boat, well, Joseph of Arimathea is our patron saint. In mid-afternoon on that first Good Friday, he approaches Governor Pilate and asks for the body of Jesus. Now, only Arimathea could have done that because he was, in today's parlance, he was a top 1%er. And the governor knew who buttered his bread, and so he was glad to see him. What amazed Joseph, however, was how quickly the governor said, by all means, take his body. Because Rome, and especially Pilate, wanted this Jesus thing to be buried and done with. For Joseph, this was his last testament of devotion to Jesus, the one who had cracked open his heart, but just as badly cracked open his life. Joseph would never be the same once he encountered Jesus. Never. Before Jesus, Joseph was, to be esteemed. He was at the very top of civic and religious and of social life. He'd walk down the sidewalks of Jerusalem, and people would pay deference, maybe even hop off the sidewalk. Little boys would look at Joseph and say, "Mama, I want to be like him when I grow up." Not anymore. Not anymore. Now Joseph has become almost a pariah, an embarrassment to high society. And he's probably even thought about climbing in that tomb with Jesus and just putting an end to it. If Joseph had a sister, it would be Mary Magdalene. They're completely different social classes, but so much alike. Mary too just wants to give her last act of fealty to the one who has loved her in a way she had never been loved before. She just wants to show how much she loved Jesus, even though it's come to an end. And so early on Sunday morning, she shows up at the tomb. What she doesn't know, in the meantime, on Friday afternoon, Joseph and his cadre of at least 2 people race to Calvary. and take down Jesus' body, his whole body, and the cross, and with Roman crowbars have to pry out the stakes that have been nailed into Jesus' hands and feet. And then, I presume, one person took the legs, and two people took the torso by the armpits, and running against the sun, because the new Jewish day begins at sunset, they go as fast as they can to the Arimathea burial plot. When they get there, they just, as quickly as they can, wipe off Jesus' tormented, tortured, and bloody body, and they adorn him in white linen burial cloths. And then they gingerly place him in the tomb that Joseph had hewn out of the rock for himself. And they roll the big stone over the entrance. Just as they do so, the sun is setting. The sun is setting on the western horizon. The Sabbath has arrived. It's now Saturday. Now, I don't know about Joseph, but Mary Magdalene is up all Saturday night. All she can think about is getting to the end of the Sabbath where she can get to Jesus' body and treat him the way he needs to be treated, to do her last act of adoration. She gets there, and of all things, she finds the tomb where she knows that Jesus has been laid. It's empty. And like everyone else in this room, she is in incredible despair because she knows that shenanigans have gone on and they have just taken his body and disposed of it. And so 2 times she says, just tell me where you have disposed of his body and I will take care of it. And I will take care of it. Just tell me, did you throw it in a ditch? I'll get it there. Did you put it back up there in the brush? I'll get it there too. Just tell me. And then she hears a 2-syllable word that's spoken as only one person in the universe could speak it. She hears the word Mary. And at that moment, she knows that Jesus has been raised. But she, like Joseph, also knows that he died a terrible death first, a horrific death. And so Mary Magdalene and Joseph can only get at Easter from the Saturday side of things. They have to go from the Saturday side of things. Now, I'm one of those on the Saturday side of things. Perhaps you are too. I know that Jesus' work is finished. His once for all sacrifice is enough. I know that. If that wasn't true, I couldn't stand before you. But I also know this deep within me, I am not finished. And the resurrected Lord, who was tormented for me, has a lot of rearrangement to do in this life. And if you're on the Saturday side of things, we do have a spokesman that's much more articulate than I am. The most terse, caustic seminary professor I've ever known is William Willimon from Duke Divinity School. When I was a young whippersnapper, he taught me at the National Cathedral when I was chosen for the College of Preachers. Being in his classes like being on the rapids when you were studying under him. And I got to study under him 2 weeks ago, and it was just as bad, maybe worse. He was the most curmudgeonly Methodist bishop of Alabama in the history of that venerated state. He made everyone miserable. So I sat with him 2 weeks ago, and he proceeded to make me miserable again. He makes 3 comments about those of us on the Saturday side of Easter. He says, first of all, Jesus did not come to stabilize our life. He came to destabilize our lives. Whoa. And if we've been thinking all this time that we can kind of cull out one of those little squares on our Google Calendar and even make it bright and say, oh, this is Jesus' time, this will do, think again. Jesus will not tolerate that. He has defeated death, and He also can break the death hold on our fantasies about our Christian life. You know, when Jesus invited people into the life of God, we invited people to actually exist in the Trinity. He would use two words, follow me. He said it to Matthew, He said it to Simon Peter, He said it to Andrew, He said it to James, He said it to John, and He said it to you and me. When we're first invited into the life of God, He says, follow me. It sounds easy until we realize to follow Jesus means the old life has to die. We cannot stay where we were and still follow the Lord. The risen Lord demands more than that. He destabilizes each one of us, such that the ground beneath our feet is like in an earthquake. I ran into this in the last 2 weeks. When I was listening to Willimon kind of, chew off my ear, Justin Lindstrom, who is the priest that oversees with Melissa Carroll our outreach, he was listening to an outreach leader from Memphis, Tennessee. I know what you're thinking, Dennis Eberhard, home of the king, wasn't that kind of talk, okay? It was a very poignant talk by a man who's moved into the midst of the poorest folks and one of the poorest neighborhoods in the nation. And he made these 2 points to all the outreach pastors, 160 of them present. He said this: we can no longer treat those whom we serve as clients. They must become our allies. Now, in this church, we serve hundreds of people every week. You want to see it happen? Come out here with Merrill Stanley and some others on a Saturday morning, and you'll see a parade of people coming to us because this is their last hope. But they can no longer be clients to us. They must be our allies. And in fact, the man went on to say this: put away your ideas of a soup kitchen ministry. The new vision is a potluck dinner. And that lets us know the people coming to us have as much to give to us as we do for them. It is a totally different relationship. And coming off my tongue, it sounds pretty easy until you begin to realize, oh, wait a minute. If they're no longer our clients, we're not in control. Oh. But I feel so good kind of doing this. And if they have as much to give me or more than I have to give them, oh my goodness. It says a lot about my own neediness. It says a lot about who I really am, doesn't it? Christ, the risen Lord, did not come to stabilize your and my life. He came to destabilize it forever. Second thing Willimon said to us, if that wasn't enough, he said, Jesus did not come to meet our needs. He came to give us needs we never thought we had. Oh, Jesus did not come to meet our needs. He came to give us needs we never thought we had. I think when we get in our kind of stagnated Christian growth, we begin to think of Jesus as this genie in the lamp. And if I just rub him the right way, I'll get just what I want. There's nothing in the New Testament that allows us to think that. Nothing. Christ did not come to give you and me our best life now. That is hogwash. Jesus Christ came to give us life and give it in all abundance, John 10:10, and you cannot have abundant life as long as as we attend to our rapacious self needs. The only way to live fully in Christ is to open our hands wide. It is the only way. It is to get over ourselves and know that we were created to give our life away. And that can be as hard as anything. You know, I'm in a group of pastors. We're in a support group. I know that y'all know I need to be in a support group, but not the kind you're thinking. This is a pastor support group. And there's 5 urban pastors. All the churches are bigger. The senior pastors serve churches larger than this one. There's 2 Baptists. Imagine that. 2 Presbyterian churches. Okay, so 2 Baptists. And 1, well, Episcopalian. Ta-da! We meet once a month and we talk in confidence. But this last week, I really was shook up. One of the pastors who's more conservative politically and theologically than I am, I know you can hardly imagine that. Imagine Barry Goldwater rising from the dead. Anyway, he said, Pat, you won't believe what we're doing. He said, you really won't believe what we're doing in my parish. I said, well, tell me about it. He says, well, several times a week now, we're going down to the Greyhound bus station. I said, you're doing what? He said, we're going down to the Greyhound bus station. Well, so what are you doing? He says, well, we go down there to meet the migrants as they get off the bus. The ones that are sent up here by the border control that have been released, but they arrive here, and we make sure they have enough to eat. We make sure their medical needs are met. We make sure their children are taken care of. We make sure they have something to wear. And I said, oh boy. He goes, Pat, if you think this is easy for me, think again. He said, but the Lord spoke to me, and he said, this is a need I'm giving you, so go to work. He said, when the Lord spoke to me, he said, remember what I said to my disciples at the Last Supper. A new commandment I give you, that you love one another as I have loved you, no matter where they come from. Whoa. Wow. When the risen Christ gets a hold of us, don't be thinking comfort zone. We're going to be given needs we never thought we had. Finally, Willimon said to us, the Lord never saves people without giving them a job to do. Salvation is always connected to vocation. Now, I'm not talking about whether or not you're an engineer or you're a physician, or if you're an attorney or if you're a biochemist, or whether you're a truck driver or whether you're a homemaker. I'm not talking about that kind. Whatever you're doing is great, I hope. What I'm talking about is the vocation that all Christians have, and that is to make Christ known. That is the vocation all of us have. Do you realize on the day you said yes to Christ, on the day you said yes to the Lord, when he said, follow me, he made you a priest? Everyone in the pews, if you've said yes to the Lord, you're a priest of God. There's only one priesthood, and it's the priesthood of all believers. My job, Justin's job, Brian's job, the chief of staff's jobs, Scott's job. Our job is to remind you that you're a priest, and the day we quit doing that, we need to do something else. There's only one priesthood. And that, our vocation as priests, is to make Christ known. That's our job. No matter what, beyond all political divisions, beyond anything else, no matter what our family's up to make Christ known. And so when Jesus invites us into the life of God, he says, follow me, right? But when he invites us to be his disciple, when he wants to give us a vocation, he says, take up your cross and follow me. Whoa, whoa. If any person would come after me, says Jesus, he must take up his cross and follow me. Jesus says it 3 times in the New Testament. He's serious about it. Now, I had my comeuppance this week. I was saying prayers with Kay early in the morning. You know, she's a nurse and she leaves for work, I think, before the Lord's even awake. But anyway, she leaves sometimes at 5 o'clock in the morning, so we're saying our prayers. And at the end of the prayers, she has a few minutes. She said, Pat, I've been thinking. And I said, oh no. She says, you know, I've been hearing you talk about take up your cross. She says, she says, I believe we have it all wrong. In my marriage, that's code word for, Pat, you don't have a clue. She says, we always think about take up your cross as some onerous duty. Oh, that person is my cross to bear, or this work is my cross to bear. But she says, that's not right. She says, Jesus took up his cross out of love for those he knew and those people who hated him. Taking up your cross is about extending love. It's being liberated from all your junk. It's being freed from all your stuff and being able to give love unreservedly. She says, that's what taking up your cross is all about. Someone's a prophet in our house, and I did not get the job. Well, she no sooner had said that to me than I came to work a little later. After the sun came up, I came to work, and I had my communion stuff because we have a lot of people we're taking home communions to. So I'm walking down the covered walkway, just like this, got it under my wheel. And suddenly I see this beautiful Latina woman, and she is peeking into the family ministry center, and she's doing this into one of the windows. Now, doesn't take a genius to realize she has a kid in there, and she's waving to the child. Some of you guys are slow, but that's what she was doing. Okay, so I'm walking down there. I see this radiant woman. I come up to her and I said, your child must be new at respite care. This church for 20 years has provided the means and the place so that beautiful children who have cognitive or physical challenges can get the care they need. And we do that 6.5 days a week. So I knew who was in there. I said, you have a child there? She said, yes, we've only been here 2 months. I said, is your child, Max, he's 3 years old, is he having a good experience? And she said this. She said, oh, yes. My child had never said a word. We had realized he probably was never going to speak. But after being in respite care for about 3 weeks, he came home one day and he said, Mama. Now I want you to think about how profound that is, what kind of miracle that is, if you're a mother and you never think your child's going to say your name. Mama. And I said, I didn't know what to say actually, but I said, you want to see the church? Now, what else are you going to say? I'm See, she said, yeah, I'd love to see the church. So I brought her in here, and it was dark, and I turned on the lights. And I swear to you, she came in here and she did this. She said, it's so beautiful. It's so beautiful. I think sometimes those of us who've been here for so long, we forget how absolutely radiant and beautiful and this place is, set aside by God for over 100 years. She says, it's so beautiful. And she says, I commit to you this because I've experienced the miracle that Christ can do. I'm going to spend my life making sure my children have faith. I'm going to spend my life making sure my children have faith. That's vocation. That's vocation. If we can remember that magnificent, beautiful, shining light of a woman, we will finally begin to move from Saturday to Monday. Let's stand.